Let me tell you the story of a girl who married a masquerade. In the village of Ile-Odu, cradled between winding rivers and dense mangrove forests, lived a girl named Àdùnkẹ. Everyone in the village whispered her name with awe and a little worry. She was the fisherman's only daughter, braver than most boys and stubborn in ways the elders both admired and feared. Àdùnkẹ was extraordinary. While other children loved the bustle of the village square, the festivals and gossip, she loved the quiet secrets of the river. She loved the mist that clung to the water like silver cloth, the way sunlight danced across the ripples, and the soft hum of unseen things at dawn. The villagers said she had river's blood, as if the river itself had chosen her. Her days were spent paddling through fog, untangling nets, counting birds between mangroves, and listening to rhythms no one else could hear. She knew which bends held the best fish, which tides brought bounty, and which spots were said to be watched by spirits. In Ile-Odu, masquerades were spirits, guardians who watched over the land, the forests, and the rivers. They were ancient, powerful, and wise. They could reveal themselves to any human they chose, but humans and masquerades had never fallen in love. It simply hadn't happened before. One day, as Àdùnkẹ went about her usual morning at the river, untangling nets, watching the mist curl over the water, and counting birds between the mangroves, a shape appeared at the edge of the river bank. The mist seemed to bend around him, parting like it knew he belonged there. She saw it clearly, yet she did not flinch. It was a masquerade, masked in polished ebony, reeds, and shimmering cloth that caught the sunlight like liquid fire dancing on the water. This was no ordinary spirit. He was the guardian of the river itself, tasked with protecting its currents, its depths, and the secrets beneath. Yet when he saw Àdùnkẹ, so fearless, so attuned to the river, so alive in ways no human had ever been, he was fascinated. She spoke to the river as if it were a living friend, laughed at dangers others feared, and moved with a rhythm that mirrored the currents he commanded. For the first time, the guardian found himself drawn to a human heart. At first, their connection was quiet and subtle. Then it gently unfolded. Àdùnkẹ left small offerings along the water's edge, fresh fish, bright river flowers, and braided reeds. In return, the guardian spoke in the language of the river. Currents that swirled into patterns she could read, fish leaping in playful arcs as if sending messages, and mist curling into shapes that seemed to answer her questions. Sometimes the currents guided her to hidden fish and bountiful catches, or the river itself left her gifts, a shell polished smooth by the flow, a reed twisted into a delicate shape, or a bright feather drifting gently downstream. Guidance came in quieter ways too. In her dreams, each sign alone was small, but together they wove a secret conversation, understood only by her and the spirit who had not only grown fascinated by her fearless heart, but had come to care for her. Soon, Àdùnkẹ began to sense him everywhere along the river. His movements shimmered like shifting masks, sometimes playful, sometimes solemn, and his eyes held stories that the river itself seemed to echo. When he appeared among the reeds or lingered where the sunlight danced on the water, it was as if the river were performing with him, bending currents and tossing mist in quiet celebration of their bond. She spoke aloud, sharing her fears, her joys, and the small wonders of her world. Gradually, the river itself became their language, binding them in a quiet intimacy that no one else could comprehend. Over time, their bond grew into something no one had ever known: love, unspoken but undeniable. She learned to feel the river as he did, sensing its moods, its warnings, and its whispers of protection. He learned to see the world through her eyes, finding joy in curiosity, courage, and laughter. Every dawn, as the mist shimmered on the water, their hearts spoke in rhythms the human ear could not hear. One night, under a crescent moon, the river seemed to nod its approval. The Masquerade revealed himself fully, more spirit than form, yet with a presence that filled Àdùnkẹ with awe and trust. After months of shared mornings, secret conversations with the river, and subtle signs from the Masquerade, Àdùnkẹ realized that her heart was no longer human-bound. It had opened to him. The guardian of the river had never needed words before, yet he understood her completely. But for something as extraordinary as a union between human and Masquerade, he could not simply take her. Her consent was necessary, even if human customs didn't apply to him. One dawn, he guided her to a secluded bend of the river she had always loved, where the water ran deep and still. The mist was thick, the air heavy with the scent of mangrove and fresh rain. There he appeared fully, not just a shadow, but a form that glimmered like sunlight on water. He did not speak, but the river whispered in Àdùnkẹ's ears, carrying a message through currents and reeds. Do you choose to walk beside me, beyond the bounds of human life, bound by river, mist, and heart? Àdùnkẹ placed her hand upon the water, feeling the current pulse beneath her palm, and nodded. It was her choice, freely made, her curiosity, courage, and love leading her. The ritual of their marriage was unlike anything ever imagined. The river itself became an altar and witness. Reeds braided into loops of green and gold floated past, marking the circle of union. Fish leapt in arcs, tracing patterns only Àdùnkẹ could see. Mist rose to form arches and spirals, wrapping them in silver privacy. The guardian of the river extended a branch woven with reeds, water lilies, and carved shells, a symbol of promise and protection. Àdùnkẹ accepted it, her fingers brushing the polished wood of his mask as she sealed her vow. There was no priest, no song, no human words. The union was ratified by shared understanding, mutual respect, and love, witnessed by the river, the mist, and the spirits that had always watched over them. The currents carried their joy, the fish danced, and the mangrove seemed to sway in blessing. From that day, Àdùnkẹ was not just a human girl who loved the river. She became part of its spirit, a bridge between human and Masquerade, united with the guardian who had been fascinated by her courage, curiosity, and fearless heart. It was the first time in history that a human and a Masquerade had bound their hearts together. But the extraordinary cannot remain hidden forever. Àdùnkẹ's long hours at the river, the gifts she left, and the strange movements in the currents drew the villagers' attention. Fear and awe twisted their faces. One evening, torches in hand, they surged toward the river. "Witch, river child, you consort with spirits," they shouted, voices sharp, mud squishing underfoot. Reeds snapped, and the river coiled around her ankles, warning her to flee. Then the mist thickened, and from its heart appeared the guardian of the river, the Masquerade who had fallen for her, moving with power, grace, and love. The villagers stumbled, tripped by currents that obeyed him alone. Àdùnkẹ felt herself lifted, carried by the river he commanded. She clung to him, heart pounding, tears streaming down her face. Behind the mist, she glimpsed her father's anguished eyes. She would leave him, her home, forever. And from that day, the river carried her sorrow. It is said that on nights when the mist rises thick over the water, curling through the mangroves and reeds, you can sense Àdùnkẹ's longing for her father and her village. Her grief moves quietly with the currents, blending with the river's voice, a reminder that love can cross worlds, yet still leave traces of the heart behind. And so, the girl who loved the river became legend, the first human to truly love a Masquerade, a bond that had never been seen before, a love that defied expectation, and a sorrow that dances forever in the river's song. If you enjoyed our story, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more African stories. Do you think love should ever cost you your home, your people, or your past? Share it in the comments.